primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From the bright center of the galaxy, I'm Grex Kondak, and you're listening to Core World News, your Holland news service providing in-depth coverage of all the latest stories from around the galaxy. Now, the news segment rundown for June 28th, 2022. Kyber Crystal Comics Corner. Now, your hosts Ben, Grant, and Adam to go to the Comics Corner and review Crimson Reign by Charles Soule.
All right, thank you very much, Grex. Welcome back, everybody, to Core World News. Good to be talking to you again. Before we hopped on in the old Crimson Reign, which is a great 5-issue arc written by Charles Soule, I wanted to just see any other little pick-me-ups, any other comments about Obi Wan Kenobi. Now that you've had a week to digest, anything else you wanted to talk to about that?
Obi-Wan. After the show, we talked about just the idea of Reva, having such close contact with Luke, and a lightsaber basically being within his vicinity, and that conversation, which was great, which we should post as sort of like, after show sort of bonus cast. But that was fun. And then I don't know, season 2, like it sounds like there's a lot of talk about a season 2. Do you guys have any thoughts about where this could go?
I mean,
I don't know. I think we talked a bit about it like last week. I just want kind of I think, Ben, you talked about it just being a traveling swordsman series, right? That's what I want, is get away from no more Vader. Vader was awesome. I love how they used it, but that story is done now. And just, out there getting a call to go do something. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if anything more detailed than that. I mean, obviously that's a pretty basic sort of wide cast of some like storyline, but as far as like motivations, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to tie him up with Cal Kestis necessarily. I'm trying to think about other entities that are out there that he would interact with organically, like not really, not Saw Gerrera's group, like probably,
Hidden Empires,
not the Rebels. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, actually, can't really do Crimson Reign, which we're about to talk about. Because he would be too big a player in that.
There's also specifically something happens in the series that we're talking about that kind of pulls Obi-Wan Kenobi out from play.
Yeah, exactly. That we will get to. What about something like motivations that Qui-Gon would give him? Something to do with the Force. I think I read something online. Someone was like, "Oh, he's going to have his own sort of Mortis adventure," but he wasn't Mortis the first time too. So
that could generate the most hype out of any Disney Plus series if the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon is like, you failed, and there's been tragedy in your life, but you can always do good. And then he takes on this sort of like swashbuckling Batman, sort of like hero, Scarlet Pimpernel of with alter ego, sort of a hero of this dark time, and run around saving people's lives and
like freeing slaves and
all type of
right. And loosening the Empire's grip on a few like planets or whatever.
But it's Qui-Gon being like, you can still do good. And then he's like, that generates the whole
motivation.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple options. And now I think about that. They could, if they really wanted to do tone poemy, they could have the whole Qui-Gon Force Ghost saying, you will go to blank and train with blank, right? Like there could be another Force user out there. That is not connected to the Jedi Order, right? If we're kind of doing this like reevaluation of the Jedi, there could be other Force users out there that Qui-Gon wants to learn from, which is a bit of what we get in old EU alert. Jason Solo goes out like after the whole Yuuzhan Vong War and basically just goes on a 7-year walkabout. That's right. Where he just learns from all the other Force users in the galaxy that are not related to the Jedi Order, which is fascinating. So you could get a little bit of that. Where is Ahsoka in the timeline right now? Is she alive, or is that weird time period where she's kind of not around, having to come back?
She's alive. This is still pre-Rebels,
right?
So she's doing the same thing pretty much.
Yeah. So you could have an Ahsoka Obi-Wan adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I could tolerate one episode of that, but like I don't know. Ahsoka's kind of her story, and I feel like she's been used a little too liberally. I would prefer
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Just hearing you and say that would be incredible.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. I mean, yeah, I'd love it, but I would love to use it as a vehicle to make the galaxy larger.
Agreed.
You know, we're going to talk about Crimson Reign, but it's like there's not a lot of like force wielding factions outside of the Sith and the Jedi, and I would use him to sort of open that up a little bit, like maybe you know, burgeoning force wielding civilizations or people that have had it before, you know. I don't know, something to like sort of introduce.
That would be great. Sort of delving into a journey into the Force, each episode just exploring the Force in a different way and his reconnection to it, and lead. And then heroics just, you know, as
will happen as a matter of course.
Media res, like as you do.
I love that. And you know, there's also the path out there that was introduced in this series where they're like relocating Jedi and Padawans and younglings, right? But just like to where? Like what is the organizing force? Don't you need a Jedi master or a major force user to help with these things, right? Even if it's just minor training on how to hide yourself, you know? So you could have those interactions as well.
I mean, I just think Yoda whenever you guys say that, though. So I would hope that there's one episode where he visits Yoda on Dagobah in the flesh and not as a force ghost, which could then mirror the moment where he sits on the log as a ghost. Like that would be fun.
Yeah, I have no problem with him visiting Yoda. After this season, I totally could see that happening and not breaking canon. Yeah.
What about a continuation or a redesigning of the path with like Obi Wan Kenobi as its sort of guide? And you know, maybe it's like we need to not just get these force users to safety, but we should funnel them towards other force users that are using it like organically in a different way, but like that match their personality. And so like he talks to Yoda about what he thinks about it, and then he needs to go and find these civilizations. It's sort of like an cultural exchange program that he needs to set up for force users, which sounds lame when I say it like that, but I don't know.
No, that sounds like the perfect story, honestly. Out of everything we've talked about, that is what I think the best story going forward would be, is just he gets back in touch with Roken. He helps them coordinate their efforts and get his force sensitive somewhere safe. And maybe he then has to go find these distant worlds at the fringes of the galaxy. These, you know, with a strange relationship to the Force, like you're talking about. The civilization there is just built differently, and then they protect force sensitives. And then, hey, maybe the Empire shows up, and there's so many force sensitives there, they can create like a bubble shield or something. They're like, leave us alone.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Yeah, or just chew them up like a wood chip.
Yeah.
There could be some cool. Ultimately, my heart says it's perfect. Let's leave well enough alone. But I'd still, if Ewan's down, it would be compelling media, and I'd love to see it.
I wouldn't say no. I'm also equally happy if we never see another episode of Obi-Wan. It just did such a perfect job of merging or
I mean, we have to go house hunting too. We have to find the hermit house.
Yeah, true. That was the only like box that we didn't check.
I know.
I
thought for sure
had a whole canon checklist. In front of them, and they didn't hit hermit house.
I really thought when he's packing up, we'd see him settling a new house, and that's when he would see Obi-Wan, not just on the side of the road.
Yeah, me too. But it's like, well, he has probably built that house or something. But I was like, okay, we're going through the canyon, and at the other side of the canyon's the hermit hut, and the abandoned. Maybe it was an abandoned hut.
That would actually be a fun ending. Is sort of like he starts building it with the materials that he buys, and he does it all himself. Like, I don't know. That'd be touching, because it's like he's now rebuilding his life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know me, I'm all for like, give me a silent episode, a single episode of him just building the house.
I know. We were like
molding clay.
Can you sit in the cave for 40 minutes, and then at the last, couple seconds, we hear Qui-Gon just chime in, and then that's roll credits.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyways, it was great. Another random thing I wanted to throw out to you, Casual Jason reached out on Instagram and he was wondering what would happen if Obi-Wan actually did kill Vader, and how would that affect his relationship with Luke and Leia. Would they be able to now be sort of free to train, and where he could more train the twins out in the open?
Yeah.
Figuratively, he does kill like their father, but
takes out.
He's gone. He's dead. Where does Anakin fall in this? It's still the story still matters. I think. When does Anakin in Mustafar? He basically.
Kills Anakin.
So I think he meant in the
series. So in the second.
What if Obi-Wan had killed Vader?
I have thoughts about where that story would have went. Just hearing it now is that, yes, that means he can open them. He can train them more out in the open. The issue is you then have only one Sith, which means that Palpatine's now on the search for an apprentice. You now have 2 kids being trained somewhat out in the open that he might be able to sense.
Yeah.
Also, Vader, as much as he, if you look at the statistics, like it was terrible to leave him alive. He's probably done so many immoral actions after that it's just not. It was not the, righteous thing to do. But I think Vader's also responsible for a lot of the stumbles and failures of the Empire. Like a lot of the fumbling by the Empire is because of Vader.
Yeah, he's so emotional.
Leaving him alive. The Empire can fall. It's another weak point. It's the sensitive master who's at the top of the org chart that can fall, and you leave him there because then it's a weak point in the Empire, much like the exhaust port on the Death.
So if we kind of follow the casual Jason nerd's suggestion or question about kind of the infinities, I think the story becomes Luke versus Leia. It becomes, instead of father versus son versus father, it becomes brother versus sister. One of them falls. One of them becomes one of the Empire, the other Sith Lord. And then my fear is exactly what Grant's saying, is that imagine if it was Leia that fell, right? And you have Leia now, dark side, helping Palpatine run the Empire. That's scary, right?
Ooh,
that's so much scarier than Vader. Like, that's a really successful, really brutal Empire.
Yeah. The law of conservation of Force energy too, which I don't really think is real, even though Freddie Prinze Jr. had me convinced it was for a long time.
He made a really good argument.
But yeah, he made a good argument. Would say then, someone would fall to the dark.
So how I think that could play out organically is Obi would eventually want to attempt to take out the Emperor, right, with Luke, right? They would try to at some point, because they'd train him up, and then he would go with him, and and then if Obi fell, and maybe Leia's there too training as a Jedi, if Obi-Wan fell, then one of them could fall after that, just having his death.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
And then that's a really kind of dramatic story at that point.
And then you have the Emperor able to turn the screw of Obi-Wan trained you. Obi-Wan didn't tell you about your father. He killed your father, right? So it's almost it's almost the Empire. It's the end of Empire, except now you have Palpatine revealing to Luke that Obi-Wan killed his father.
Yeah.
It would just play out differently and be super fun. Yeah. Be a great Infinity's tale.
It'd be super cool. Yeah.
All right. Good story, guys. That's a great take. I'm glad I asked you all that. All right. Well, let's get into Crimson Reign.
All right, we're going to talk about Crimson Reign 1 through 5 today, brought to you by Sewell, Cummings, Olzaba, Guru, EFX, Lanham, U, and Go. Yeah, would you all like? We'll break these down issue by issue. It's a little more of a vignette type of story, but just overall thoughts. What do you think of the series so far?
My favorite kind of stories are vignette stories. For the record.
Yeah. Great. Really works well.
It's a great series. This has a lot of really fun, sort of dramatic scenes.
Yeah.
And plays with all the really, the great characters. And Qi'ra obviously is the lead in this series, and she's so cool. She's a great counterpart to Palpatine, which is I didn't expect that after Solo, and now I'm like, this makes perfect sense. She's so calculating. She took out Dryden Voss. She's likely going to confront Maul in whatever untold story that is, and she takes over Crimson Dawn, which is a huge feat. And then she's even labeled the Scarlet Queen, I think, in one of the issues. I think it's titled that.
Yeah, the last issue.
It's just such a fitting title. Like, what a cool character at this point. And just love all the development with Qi'ra.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the other thing that's important to mention is that this is kind of the second part of a trilogy, right? We started with War of the Bounty Hunters. This is Crimson Reign, and then the third and final part is Crimson Dawn, which Hidden Empire. I think is coming in the fall. But Ben, your thoughts?
Well, I just wanted to sort of sum it up a little bit. I think it is fantastic. It makes a lot of sense that because of how overpowered Crimson Dawn has looked in comparison to all the other entities we saw during the War of the Bounty Hunters, which is really the War of the Syndicates, which is ongoing through this sort of parallel to all this. Like, and so it makes sense that like her opposite number would be the Emperor, not Prince Caesar or whatever, or Jabba the Hutt. She's playing a much larger game, and her game is now revealed to us what she's been doing since she joined Crimson Dawn up until this point. And so we see her join Crimson Dawn in Solo, the Solo standalone movie. And so this is sort of, she's been working for what, 10 years? No, 20 years at this point?
No, because Solo was 10 years before A New Hope.
5 years. Oh, no.
No, like 13.
13 years
13.
since.
Yeah.
And then this is after Empire Strikes Back. So okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 13,
so, yeah, 13, 15.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And you know, I know that John Kasdan had talked about, I think it was like that 52 or 42 facts about Solo that he released way back when. Yeah. I think he talked about Syndicate Wars, right? Being kind of probably the next step if there was going to be a Solo 2, it would have dealt with this. So, yeah, I don't know how much they took from the Kasdans in this and how much Sewell just did on his own, but it's interesting to think of this as like
characters.
Yes, but I just mean in terms of like story plotting. I mean, is this what we would have seen in Solo 2, or do they just kind of completely rewrite the book with this? Who knows?
Well, I think what we might have gotten, and we'll get into the actual plot of this. We know pretty much Crimson Dawn is essentially a spy network. If that's their real strength, and assassins is sort of what they excel at, but they're an information broker, spy network, and assassin like organization.
It's a massive organization.
Yeah, beyond scale. They gave it some scope in this story where they're just like, okay, she's utilizing these parts, and we'll get into those in a little bit. But I think, you know, the story that I would have wanted to see in the Solo verse would have been the tutelage of Qi'ra by Maul.
Yeah.
And Maul's relationship with Qi'ra, because it was like when the Solo ended, it was like, oh gosh, now she has to deal with this monster. But like, in fact, she mentions in the story he was a mentor of sorts, and and ultimately their purpose aligned, and she took up his mantle once Maul died or gave it up or did whatever. And it's a really cool story. That purpose was to destroy the Sith. And we get little smidgens of it in season 7 of the Clone Wars. When Ahsoka interacts with Maul, Maul reveals that purpose as well. So this echoes that. Yeah. Those stories. That's why I think this is an important story, and it's really fun because they're bridging 3 eras, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. They actually sort of, I think, elevate the Maul appearance in Solo if the single I guess issue 5, the last comic of the series, of the story, of the arc, they basically have a moment with Vader and Palpatine talking about Qi'ra using Teräs Käsi and how it's connected to Maul, but bringing it to the legacy characters like Vader and Palpatine, having them discuss that. And I was like, wow, now this makes sense. Now this is super compelling for other characters, and now other characters know about this. And I was like, this is fun. I like how that information spreads throughout the galaxy itself, and seeing that.
It's super powerful when Vader says Maul.
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 Whatever he acknowledges.
And it's so great too to hear like Tyrannus was also mentioned, right? Because they're trying to figure out was it because it had to either be Tyrannus or Maul. Yeah. And then the other thing I like about this, that's all right. Well, we're gonna go all around. I like this brought back a lot of the politics as well, right? Like the whole first issue is a lot of Qi'ra explaining her motivation, and it has this graph of like explaining power should ebb and flow throughout the universe over time, right? And then that like the Sith have disrupted that, and that's why the Sith need to end, not because she believes in the light side at all, or even the Force really, but basically it's just it's creating unbalance in the galaxy in terms of power. It's just fascinating.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So much fun. Just the whole idea of her going to kill the Emperor, making it her mission to take out the Emperor, is so cool. I haven't been this excited since I think the Afra issue, where Afra gets like that ancient weapon to hunt the
lightsaber
gun, which I was like, this is the one-off movie I think we can make that could be a real great ride. You know, it's like this team is like, we're going to take out the Emperor. He's got to go.
So real quick, I just want to run through the sort of levers of power that she uses during this thing. Firstly, she has the Knights of Ren, early formation of Knights of Ren when they're a little still ragtag. There's a group called the Orphans, which is a female group of all orphans and a female droid that are super powerful and stealthy. They're sort of Ocean's 11-y and great. She has not one but two assassins now. One is Ochi of Bestoon, and we get a little behind the scenes on Deathstick, which is fantastic. And then she's got her cadre of power, which are like her main people that are giving her the knowledge, right? That are leading with her. And one is Margot.
Yeah, Margot.
Yep,
Okay. Margot.
That might trump Tobias Beckett.
Was it Margot who tried to take out Qi'ra like 3 times?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, she tried to kill me 3 times.
At the top of Crimson Dawn, it's a lot like the Sith. Get used to it.
It is. It's very Sith-like. Yeah.
The stuff.
And Trinia, which are like they operate as her right and left hand and deliver messages on her thing. And then there's the Archivist, which yes, we'll just talk about.
Yeah.
Her.
Exactly.
She's her own category, really.
Gets her own issue too that we'll talk about.
So
She
cool.
is the best. Yeah.
And so if you haven't seen the Archivist, she looks dark side. She is Force related, and she's another information gatherer of sorts. But she looks super cool. The art on all these characters are super cool, and it's a really powerful thing. And they all have a different point in her plan to do stuff.
Does she go to Dagobah at some point in her issue?
Sure does. Yeah.
Yeah. I read that issue a few weeks back. I believe she goes to Dagobah and like in search of Yoda, but like never finds him or something, and then leaves. Is that what happens?
Let's talk about them out of order. I don't even care.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. There is a gentle,
such a good
overarching plot, but it's really just like you said, it's really just Qi'ra putting all of these things out into the galaxy, pulling levers, just trying to get everything set up correctly.
Right.
So,
and I think she's trying. She wants the Emperor to know that she is coming for the Sith. Like she wants to. Know the Sith.
I think she talks about that in issue 5. It's kind of like it's inevitable that we're going to be found out. So we have to kind of work under that assumption and just know it's going to happen. But for the Archivist, basically her reason for that is that she wants a Force user on her side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and so her thought is she knows that Yoda's probably alive because this, again, really great reasoning is that the Empire basically destroyed all these lightsabers and basically a lightsaber burning in the middle of the Empire in the Imperial Square.
Somewhere Grievous is rolling over in his grave.
I know, right? And they did it to Yoda's lightsaber, but they never made an announcement that Yoda was dead, and that's because they were afraid that Qi'ra put together that probably means they were afraid they would say that, and then Yoda would show up at some point and make them look bad. Yeah,
I wanted to add the very delicate verbiage they used there was one of Yoda's lightsabers.
One of, yes,
because we know we see it after Return of the Jedi in the Mandalorian. So we find it. Luke finds another.
Oh,
one.
Right. Yes.
Remember?
Oh,
yes.
I totally. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Guys, I gotta go back and watch that. It's the single greatest moment in Star Wars history.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait,
is
the
that
Mandalorian?
The path of the lightsaber or the path of the Mando? And he's given the 2 options. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh,
Also, just
Use
I
the
want
ball
to
and join your mother.
Oh my goodness! I totally forgot that moment existed. Maybe because I just wept uncontrollably when it happened.
I just want to reiterate that was not the Mandalorian. That was the Book of Boba Fett for some reason.
Book of Boba Fett, right.
Yeah, I think we all,
anyway.
have, as fans, decided that those 2 episodes belong in the Mandalorian.
They're Mandalorian season 2.5.
Yep,
like those 2 episodes. 100%.
My headcanon is that the best Mandalorian episodes are in the Book of Boba Fett, and the best Boba Fett episodes are in the Mandalorian. And so there's actually a delicate balance there.
Good take.
I agree with that. I like that take.
I agree with that take. The boba displayed in that show was menacing, and I was, shaking my boots when he was taking out the stormtroopers.
Yeah,
just thrashing.
Yeah, agreed. So sends the Archivist basically to do research, which is her superpower. Basically, she has this whole this whole thing. She's like, I have a skill on my side that no one else has. Research.
Right. Isn't she ancient too? Hasn't she been living for a really long time?
Not that old. I think it's more that she talks about being corrupted by being surrounded by dark side.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
artifacts.
I love this because it's going to be an attempt to overthrow the Emperor, but it's by this this criminal syndicate that's basically got this dark heart at the center of it, where it's there's darkness coming to attack darkness. It's fire with fire, and I don't know how that's going to end. It's going to be rough. Well, we know they can't succeed.
Yeah. No, we know that, and we're told that.
Yeah,
this is actually the narrator of the whole series, and she's recording this at some time in the future. Right?
But what I love about what Sewell does is he injects this wonderful tension where Qi'ra has this moment where she has to speak before her whole syndicate, and she's like, the Emperor's learned about this sooner than I thought. Like, we have to move ahead swiftly, and it's not going to go well for us, because now the word is out there in the galaxy that they're wanted, and it's going to be tough for Qi'ra.
Yeah. I love that it's the Archivist that tells a story, because she sort of gives that sort of lore, grounded in the Force sort of mysticism aspect to this whole story, which is always something that I love to read about here in any Star Wars story. But she has an interesting political sort of angle too, is that she was she was a scholar, she studied the Force, light and dark, and then Order 66 and the Rising, they canceled everything about the Force. It's just it's not just the Force doesn't exist. They killed everyone that would die to keep the Force alive and the Hope alive, and then they just threatened everyone else who knew anything about the Force until they died, so that in fact in a generation they said the Force was gone. And so she was just there, being wow, it's destroying a culture's history to destroy who they are.
To be fair though, to be fair though, they didn't destroy Jedha, the holy city of Jedha, until right before A New Hope. So well, they were still worship the Force openly, I think, in the galaxy in certain spots.
The Guardians of the Wills were pretty dispersed.
It's almost
they killed a lot of the Guardians of the Wills. They were hangers on, but they were Qi'ra Dimway and Baze Malbus were just sort of were vagabonds, but they were the last two Guardians left. So I don't know. I mean, and they were pilfering that Jedha like a strip mine.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
they were strip mining Jedha at that point.
Yeah. I don't know. It's whatever. She said it. It's an interesting thing. And then, Qi'ra comes to give her new life. And it's just I'll let you strike back at them for what they've taken from you, and then let you live the rest of your life. But yeah, so she goes to, so she does track down Yoda on Dagobah, figures out it's Dagobah, gets captured by some weird swamp beast that throws her into that the cave, Luke's cave, the darkness cave that we actually, there's an amazing story about in From a Certain Point of View, Empire Strikes Back, where we get its point of view, the cave's point of view. And I guess there's a lot left to your imagination, but my take on this is that Yoda and this dark entity have sort of learned to sort of come to terms with each other and have sort of figured each other out, where they sort of feed each other a little bit. And I think that he used that cave to set her straight on her mission and her path in life. And she comes out
because he has the last laugh. Of course, he's watching over her at the end or something. Where he's
But she comes out it's similar to Reva in Obi-Wan, right? Like the Archivist knows that Yoda's on Dagobah. Yeah, she just knows it, but makes a decision to keep that secret.
Yeah, and I hope we learn about more of what she learns in that cave. I don't know if there's room for it, but her hair goes white. It was purple, and she comes out, her hair is white, and she's a different person. Yeah, mentoring that cave. So she could have, she's a person that knows a lot about the Force and has a all-knowing Force deity spirit to commune with in that cave. So pretty cool stuff. But ultimately, she ends up you know what? I'm going to leave Yoda right where he is and tell Qi'ra that he's dead. And in a way, that's her taking her power back. I don't have to do what
That also leads into, I mean, we're doing them out of order, but that was issue 3. This leads right into issue 4, because Qi'ra then says, all right, well, we still need a Force users. Let's just settle for the Knights of Ren. Yeah. Right. And the Archivist finds the Knights of Ren for Qi'ra.
That's right. That's right.
The other thing to note that a lot of the power that Qi'ra has is that she is one of the few people that knows that Palpatine is a Dark Lord of the Sith.
Yeah.
Right. She uses that information to recruit a lot of these people, including the Archivist. Right. The Archivist. She tells the Archivist, like, yeah. By the way, the whole thing is being ruled by a Sith Lord, and the Archivist is very similar. It's like, how could I have ever missed that with all of my studies?
It's like, don't worry about it. The whole Jedi Order missed
exactly. Yeah. You're not alone.
Yeah. Rad.
You get a lot of Ochi in this series, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Ochi got weirder. Did he get blinded in the last story that we saw, or was he always blind?
It's unclear when that happened because the Archivist is telling that story in issue 1. It's like there's this weird, like, I feel like sometimes you get like preview issues. Like issue 1 feels like a preview issue where like the Archivist is introducing all these elements, and she kind of talks about Ochi, and we see him getting blinded, right? But I don't know if that happens pre or post, or
he's like crazy now.
Yeah,
he has that neural wear on the back of his head, the sort of like
right, which allows him to see. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what happened though at the. I'm sorry. I wish I had this information about like what happened to him at the end because he's weird now. He's like gone a little nutty.
Yeah,
and he's mumbling about how I've seen the light or since I've seen the light. And I'm trying to remember what that light is.
Is that not the red Kyber on Exegol or something? Is that?
I
think you're right because he does reference.
Vader is now like an alien. He just feels so strange now. Vader feels even more removed from Anakin than ever before after seeing the red Kyber. He's a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're right, Grant, because he talks about, like, Ochi talks about Exegol and after everything that happened in Exegol.
Yeah. And he's like, I've been shut off from Exegol. I want to get back. It's like,
worship the light of that massive red Kyber crystal.
Yeah. He's wild. We also get a Deathstick story in there as well. She, it turns out, spoilers everyone, is one of the last remaining Night Sisters. From the witches of Dathomir. She is a former witch of Dathomir. And
there's like a flashback of Grievous, like just taking out all the witches of Dathomir, and she's like, "I'm one of the last survivors." That was crazy to see that panel because I would want to see Grievous's sort of impact on like the battlefield, the galactic sort of battlefield at that point. Like, what planets did he take part in? What did he do?
Yeah.
Like, when was he commanding forces and on what worlds and for what reason? Like, there's not enough Grievous really, because if he was a general during the Clone Wars, I mean, which lasted what, 3 years?
3 years, yeah. But he had to rise to general, so like he must have been like I would love that story of him being like an up and coming force.
It's Frankenstein. I mean, it's basically Vader. We don't need another Frankenstein story, but
we had it in the old EU. There was the Grievous
it's self-imposed with him. I think that body horror of him like modifying his own body. Is kind of gross.
He takes it really far too. He's just organs basically.
I mean, he's just a set of lungs and brainstem and brain. Like literally, it's grotesque and frightening. It is body horror, like you said. Yeah.
And he did it to himself, and it's like you see in like his lair in some of the early Clone Wars episodes, like his plans and his like the evolution of his suit and his body and like how he did it. And I kind of want that story along with him just like wrecking fools on different planets. I mean, there's no way to make him a hero, like, but
no.
But I would love to get it an inside look.
I mean, the Inquisitor Saber is basically like residual Grievous energy.
It feels like it, right? Like it was very Grievous inspired.
The spinny saber forever after Grievous, because
maybe he had the designs in his cave.
That would make sense.
I mean they did have the Grievous book in old EU, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, I never read that. Maybe did I read it? No, I don't think I did.
I did, but it's way back in my EU.
Yeah, there's a few Dark Horse comics I have that are Grievous's stories specifically.
So the first one's really about the orphans, and the first episode sort of sets the plot for all of these people, which we've pretty much talked about. And then the second one I think is about the assassins.
Yeah.
And
and the first one, the other thing that happens in it, because it's like half setting the stage and half the orphan story, and their their story is that they're basically out there telling all the crime syndicates the same information, which is the Hutts are no longer in the favor of the Empire. You need to go out there and show that you have the power, and Emperor Palpatine will use you. And so basically the Orphans just start the war of the syndicates, right? Just basically everyone just, and they're going out assassinating people within these different organizations and not leaving any trace. So they all think the other syndicate did it. So basically they're just sowing chaos.
Qi'ra is a lot like Palpatine in terms of like orchestrating the sort of systems of power in the underworld of the galaxy.
Yeah, she's very much the
syndicates
Palpatine of
things
the
like that.
underworld.
Yeah, so it's just the perfect sort of foil for Palpatine. Because the Orphans, if I'm not mistaken, they're the ones. Is that Cadelia and the other one? That's they're basically the heirs to the clans, the syndicates, right?
Cadelia is not one of them. They're different. They're different orphans, but Cadelia comes into play. She is Deathstick's target.
Yeah,
ultimately was. She was stolen by Deathstick.
We get a brief background of the Orphans, which basically like what their leader was. The leader's parents were killed by Vader. Vader made her swear that she didn't see anything and it wasn't actually nothing actually happened, and she kind of kept that. I have a feeling they're referencing a run on Vader, but I just could not pull it, and Wikipedia is not cooperating right now.
Yeah,
but then
it's probably Vader. Meow 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 meow.
Exactly, it's definitely one of the. It's probably the Vader that Sewell wrote on. Would be my guess. The arc that Sewell wrote on, because he is self-referential in these things. Like he loves to set things up. No, absolutely. Like he likes to. It's hilarious because he likes to set something up that he wrote in like. Yeah. Because he's also written on everything, right? Like he's written on Star Wars, the main run. He's written on Vader. He's written High Republic. He's written on this. He's written on some of the other miniseries. So he has a lot that he can like set up and other things and pull together. Yeah. And then I think the rest of the Orphans are just, they don't really get much of a backstory from them. They're orphans that have been basically from the Empire base, or orphans because of the Empire.
Yeah. So you're right. So they all get sort of set into motion. Episode 2, they do the Ochi of Bestoon. Actually, he has a cool story.
Yeah.
Where he gets one of those droids from Attack of the Clones. The like assassin droids from that like shoots the
hunter seekers.
Yes.
The hunter seeker into droids. And
I love Attack of the Clones.
Right? I love Attack of the Clones.
That's been a menace, you guys. Oh, no, you're right.
No, it's the opening scene of Attack of the Clones.
It's that. No, it's that one.
That puts the killer worm.
That puts the centipede in there.
Exactly. Centipede into Padme's bedroom.
When you have that weird sense of competition between Anakin and Luke of like, I sensed it too.
Yeah, Anakin and Obi-Wan. Yeah, that wild thing. So that's the thing that flies up. Oh, and it's also the thing that Obi-Wan hangs on and flies across Coruscant as it's getting away.
Yeah, after just jumping through a window. It's great. It's good stuff. It's amazing.
But so he uses it to kill all of the Imperial Guard, a retinue of 10 Imperial Guard that was there to welcome him, so that they would die right in front of him as he was walking down the procession.
Yeah.
First of all, Imperial Guard are my favorite. It's amazing. It was great to see behind the scenes with them where they're just wearing like officer uniforms underneath their robes.
All having breakfast together.
Yeah. Just having
one
breakfast.
Dude. Yeah.
And then they put on the sick robes and go and do their thing. That was a great behind the scenes. And then I don't know. Yeah. They're my favorite. That's great.
Yeah, and then Deathstick, as you mentioned, is just going to grab Cadelia, who is from the Bounty Hunter series. If you remember, she is the heir of both the Mourner's Wail and
Unbroken Clan.
Unbroken Clan. There we go. Yeah. She's basically if Romeo and Juliet had a kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we get some Deathstick background. She has, I said she's a Night Sister, but she has no lower jaw.
Yeah, it's which is like almost like it almost reminded me of like sort of a cyberpunk sort of like I don't know, sort of like a samurai faceplate sort of jaw. Sure. Like it looked awesome. I was like, this character has legs.
If they ever reintroduce Jaws into the James Bond universe, that's like 100% what they're going to do with that character.
Right. Yeah, make it a woman.
Yeah. I do think Ochi and Deathstick, they do get the panel, that's sort of the vertical panel, both of them, their sort of backstory or their sort of process panel where it's them both like sitting having a campfire moment, and I love that page. Like that page to me is gorgeous, and I love just going into those two assassins the lives of those two assassins. And
yeah,
Shadow of the Sith just came out today, so I'm excited to read that.
You get some more Ochi action.
Yeah, some
late Ochi action.
Late Ochi action. Yeah, maybe his latest.
Yeah, that's
we'll
true.
see.
Yeah, good point. The last bit of Ochi action before we get him as just a skeleton, just a corpse.
In Rise of Skywalker. So so that's great. Cordelia, but of course I thought Deathstick was sent to kill Cordelia, and I'm like, let's see how this goes. It'd be a pretty unceremonious end for the whole run of the whole. She's the whole motivation for the Bounty Hunters series,
right?
But then no, of course, Qi'ra just keeps her as probably a mentee.
That's kind of revealed in the last issue, right? Because she gets taken in issue 2, and the very end of the issue, it's basically like Qi'ra saying, "There's no need to be afraid" or something like that. We're going to be great friends.
Fascinating. That story is such a fascinating fertile ground for any kind of Star Wars story, because it's almost as if Vader stole Luke, or like found him and was like taking him and teaching him the dark side and giving him the Empire and all this kind of stuff. And I think Vader would go after the Emperor sooner if he had grabbed Luke up and found an heir, apparently.
Oh sure, yeah.
He would have been like, now I'm going to take out the Emperor because now it is my Empire and I have someone to give it to. And so this story of her just kind of stealing Cordelia to them at the end, I think issue 5, the one I read most recently, she's like, you're the heir to both these clans. It's like you are the seat of power in the underworld of the galaxy. Like it's your throne. And I'm excited to see where that goes, because Cordelia could be a huge character after this Hidden Empire.
I think they are setting that up. That's what Star Wars is doing now, right? It's multiple timelines, and we're trying to connect them all. And I would not be surprised if we see Cordelia's character start showing up in post, in the sequel era, right? We
Cordelia
don't know a lot about.
Earthly, though, is that an actual? That's a name. Like that's a common name. I feel like.
Well, it's like Cordelia is a common name. Cordelia, maybe.
Cordelia?
It sounds. It sounds like a name. If that makes sense. Like it doesn't sound super spacey. Like it seems like you could just meet someone named Cordelia and just be like, okay, cool, Cordelia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like they're doing that. I mean, that just skip ahead to kind of end of her story in issue 5. It's exactly that, Grant. Like just her, like Qi'ra explaining Cordelia's position and power, but also saying like, I didn't have this. Like I also came up like you. I was born into this life, but I didn't have someone showing me the ropes. I'm going to show you the ropes, basically.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was 2. 3 is the vignette about the Archivist, and then and it's really a flashback, and then it carries into 4, which is she recruits Knights of Ren, and 4 is about the Knights of Ren infiltrating Castle Vader.
Yeah.
But quickly in 3,
this is the wildest one.
We talked about the Archivist going to Dagobah, but quickly in 3, Qi'ra gets like a fit, like a certain outfit in that issue that like I hope they make a toy of that fit, because
is that her red outfit? Because it's like early Qi'ra.
Most drip I've ever seen for Qi'ra.
It's like Crimson Corsair sort of.
Yeah.
It's next level. Just quick mention on that. Let's go to issue 4 with Knights of Ren.
Yeah. I mean, this is the most Knights of Ren we've gotten, really. Like we get Knights of Ren in the Kylo Ren comic, but it's mostly just Ren. Ren is the only one talking for the most part, as I remember. Like we get other Knights of Ren, and it's
mostly just Ren condescending to Kylo the entire time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just someone who's an equal, or has far more power than the Knights of Ren, and just being like, hey, I have this plan. Like, I need you guys could do it for me. Here's the payout. Right. And then they basically go on this mission for Qi'ra, which is so cool. And seeing them meet someone like that is more interesting than the whole Kylo.
I agree. I think Sewell wrote that series. Maybe I can't remember. I have to double check.
But you have to lay the groundwork for the Knights of Ren, and I think that's what the Kylo Ren story did. It sort of like showed you who they were, gave you a foundation, you understood their structure a little bit, and then now in this issue, it's more of like their style, their attitude, like
their personalities. We actually get personalities for some.
I was like, oh, this is so cool. I was like,
you knew there was going to be some fodder.
What's wrong with the stealing and killing? Like we like that.
The fodder is bumming me out. Because we got my like favorite character, just she like the Twi'lek,
right?
Knight of,
she's great.
Is it Basra? Is that Basra?
Basra, I think Basra. I think you're right. Yeah, well done. And I think we don't ever see what she's saying, but all we know is it's always swears. Like it's R2. It's great. It's just R2
every time. Which makes perfect sense. Perfect sense for Ren.
You knew there were a bunch of red shirts though, because I was like, no, I've read the Kylo comic, and a lot of you aren't there. So I was like, they're going to be going down. But and they kept doing dangerous missions too. So it was like, okay, now we're just going to send you right into the the first place so they went two places. They went to go capture a key, and then they went to Vader's to get the key, and then they were sent to some other place to use the key.
Yeah, because this story continues into episode issue 5, right?
They had to go get the key in a cavern somewhere on some strange world where, like, in so trying to get the key, they basically were attacked by these large sort of I don't know, stone rock people.
So that's where she took the key. That's where she needed to use the key.
Right.
But Vader had it in his vault, so they needed to get into Vader's vault.
Oh, that's right. They first had to infiltrate Vader's castle. Yes.
And I'm pretty sure there's a Mommin reference there. There was a there was a head in
a helmet on the ground. I guess severed head. I guess there's like hair spilling out of it.
This is another reference.
And she just like Bazarin or whatever just like started shooting it and destroyed it.
It's another reference to a Sewell Vader comic, and I can't remember the plotline, but I do remember someone puts on the Mommin helmet and gets possessed, right? And I think Vader decapitates him. So I
did love the line.
My favorite thing is he just left the helmet with the head there, like just like it's fine. It'll stay there.
Yeah, there's a line from Ren that's just so great that I feel like it's in the audience mind whenever you're watching like a horror film or something like that, where it's just like, don't worry about the dead things. We should focus more on whatever's living in here.
Yeah, I got the line. Let me read the exact line.
What's the line?
I read this in public and I chuckled out loud. I read it. It's a Sith castle, Basra. There's going to be dead things around. And it says worry about the stuff that's still alive. And I love that there's going to be dead things around.
I mean, that's every horror movie. Whenever the characters are in a catacomb or something like that. Okay, the bones are going to fall on you. But guess what? Whatever's living down here, way worse, guys.
Much worse. Yeah.
But then speaking of the living, or I guess, The Walking Dead, Vani appears.
Vinay.
I think it's Vinay.
Yeah, it's Vinay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he just skulks around like whatever in his like blast shield.
Vinay has a bubble shield.
I also love that Vinay's biggest character arcs are in the IDW Tales from Vader's Castle and the Lego Star Wars Halloween special.
Yeah.
And I just love that this character also is just real. Yeah, it just shows up in here. It's just it just cracks me up because I just think of him. Yeah, the other thing I like that they did with the Knights of Ren in this is kind of suggest that their connection to the Force is not all that strong, right? Like for them to move the lava, they need all of them working together, right? Yeah. And they're really not a match for Vader.
How about that one Knight of Ren spitting in the Bacta tank?
Yeah.
Dude, that scene was straight out of a Star Wars movie. I was like, this is perfect. Like, Sewell should really just get on that next sort of screenplay or just in the story group to then be like, let's do something really fun in here that's like comical. And then that character, there's a payoff with that too. Or like, that is the one character that if you look at the very end, like that gets his comeuppance.
Yes. Well, Vader actually kills that one first right off, just like breaks him.
Yeah, one dies. Like, it turns out it's the one that spits into the back to juice. Yeah.
Just like and kills him horribly.
Like crushes him. What I've always thought I wanted, not wanted
Stranger
to see
Things.
What I thought they would be natural. Yeah, it was like the natural sort of development of what you'd see a Force choke, basically, where it's like the limbs sort of contort and compress inwards, and like the whole body is just
crushes them like a beer can.
Yeah. I was like, that's kind of where Vader's going, right? That's ultimate rage.
Yeah,
because Vader's probably more powerful in his castle than anywhere else. Like they're saying, like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much more powerful.
This is fresh off gazing into the red crystal on Exegol, now in his castle, like in his element.
Also tapping into pure anger. I'm sure
he fought Qi'ra and to a draw though, and that's making him very angry, I think, right now.
Well, also just seeing people in his house. Like, do you want to be the person who gets caught inside Vader's house who's not expected? Like that's rage right there. Like he's just angry and just crushes you like a beer can.
That guy dies pretty
hardcore.
It's pretty metal.
But they did get out with the key somehow. After they
screaming-
fought off a bunch of purge troopers and stuff too.
Yeah.
like lava troopers.
Yeah. There was like no sweat to them either. They like took them out and they like dispersed and they were like, why are they all gone?
Yeah.
like,
I'm guessing they're just lava troopers, right? They're
You're
not.
like,
They
oh.
can't,
probably
they're-
lava
so they're
troopers.
they're just
yeah.
normal stormtroopers, and
oh, those are lava troopers?
I would assume because the Death
so,
Troopers
yeah, that's
aren't
right.
in play
They're
yet.
Mustafar native stormtroopers or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they need like rebreathers or whatever to like whatever to handle heat or something.
I wonder if they're all like pale and I don't know, wrinkled up, shriveled like Vader.
Not
They
a great
also-
assignment. Not a great assignment. Mustafar, Vader's castle. I would love it personally, but I don't know.
Vader would be like, "Am I allowed in this room?"
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
So they get the screaming key? Is that what it's called?
Screaming key.
Which looks here's a bit of a real comic book nerdery. It looks a lot like the ultimate nullifier from Fantastic Four. But anyway, moving on. Google it.
It's the key with the sort of the two.
The two, and it has like a four. It has like it has a weird thing. I'm like that. Whoever was drawing that was just like, I'm gonna like put a little ultimate nullifier, the thing that kills Galactus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does look like that. I have to look at that item again, but yeah, that does seem. I've seen that silhouette, that sort of shape before. I was wondering what that pull was.
That's my guess, but
That's a good reference.
So they get away, and then ultimately they have to go use it. I think this might happen in episode 5, but maybe it's episode 4. They have to go, and I think, is this the like sunken like world of Malachor that we see? It looks a lot like the place where the rebels people. It's not named.
It's not.
It's not named. Yeah.
It looks like the place where the rebels find Darth Maul in Rebels when they're in that underground temple. And they say it's like, it could be possible that no one's been here for 10,000 years. It just has that like gray vibe.
It does. It really does. I that's what I thought it was. It just, but again, they don't say it specifically, but it feels like it, right? Like it just has that same sense of this is a bad place. This is a bad Sith place.
Yeah, they were like, usually in these dark temples, we try not to wake stuff up, and they're like, well, we have to.
Yeah.
It's like the Knights of Ren are like, okay.
All right, I guess so. Yeah, and they lose Brazra in that, and the Archivist is with them, and she climbs into a giant skull, and uses the key and finds what looks like an hourglass.
Yeah, an hourglass of some kind. Yeah.
What is that?
And we don't know. They don't tell us.
Know. We will find out probably in Hidden Empire.
Yeah, but I wonder. All right, so guesses about the hourglass.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an Afra pull, right? Like it just feels like something out of straight out of
What
Afra.
happens when the time runs out?
Right, and could it not be like something from Return of the King, like the Army of the Dead, like the going to find something that's like the things that were trying to kill them when they were getting the key? Those I guess golems, those rock people. You know, like is it not able to use maybe many of those spirits or those creatures to attack the Emperor? I don't know. You know, I don't know what it means because the next arc is called Hidden Empire, and I gotta imagine there's dual meaning to that.
Those aren't levelers, do you think?
Those aren't levelers. There's something else.
They are something else, I think. Yeah. So I don't know, but that's interesting. Like, yeah.
The screaming key.
Yeah, the screaming key. It's so weird.
And
Once you
the
get to
somewhat quiet hourglass.
It's got to be like something that resembles the agony that Vader, like metaphor for, I don't know, agony or something. Because those things look like tortured. The things that are like trying to kill them. I don't know if they're connected to the key or whatever that hourglass is, but I got to assume there's some clues or some foundation built here.
So would you like to know what this area is identified to?
Yes.
A dark side hellscape. That's in Wikipedia. That's how it's identified as a dark side hellscape. So accurate.
Yeah, accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like the verdant. We saw that like verdant planet in the Star Wars run that was like all like right side and like holes.
What if the hourglass leads to Biss and they bring Biss back? Because Biss was like, wasn't Biss the Exegol of Legends?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah. So Yeah, that's a really. I have no idea with this stuff. When you
Because
get
it's
to
like a timepiece, and what can you do?
Yeah,
with time?
so
Unless it's a key to the like parallel time dimension that we saw in Rebels,
right? I don't want to start playing around with that, but like the last time we've done anything with time, it was in Rebels, right? And like, I don't know, like what it has to. I mean, again, it's time. It has to do something with time, whether it stops time or slows time down or something. But that's such a weird.
I think Hourglass
thing.
is a sort of like tropey MacGuffin. Like it's a lot of things at once, right? I think you've seen it in story. I think it's been in many stories before where it's like, like they'll flip it and a certain event will have to take place within that time frame. It's almost like a ticking bomb or a ticking clock, right? So
or like you had suggested too, Grant, like, or it's a summoning of some kind,
or it's a summoning
like when time
of a
runs out,
that lasts for that amount of time.
Yeah, something comes, or it could be any of these
device.
things.
It's a common narrative device.
Very MacGuffin-y. I was literally, I was very surprised to see something so literal.
Yeah,
kind of be there.
It was like, this is
okay.
a plot device we're uncovering in this episode.
Yeah.
In this last issue.
Yeah.
There's also.
I don't know. I haven't read any of the new Afra run yet. But I feel like her services are desperately needed here to sort of figure this out.
I mean, she's going to be the Archivist's kind of like the thing that goes up against the Archivist, I guess, is probably going to be Afra. That seems to be would be where I would think that competition is going to take place. But there's another mystery in this issue. Who is Bashar?
Oh, the Imperial sort of spy,
the officer,
always in shadow. They make it very clear not to reveal his face.
Well, I mean, they go from like a shot of him in shadow to Qi'ra being like our informant with the Empire, and I'm like, oh well, okay. This character, that's probably a red herring. Honestly, he seemed,
It could be.
Was he wearing white? I mean, is it a Thrawn thing? It wouldn't be
Thrawn. It's Thrawn. It's Thrawn. Because he wears white and his hands are always hidden as well. His hands are specifically behind his back. Like they are not providing his skin color for very specific reasons.
Do you know what I mean? Chiss, but just a different Chiss, basically like Thrawn's replacement.
It's Thrawn. Because I still think Thrawn was in play.
Why wouldn't they just call him Thrawn then? Because I
think they want to reveal, and I think it's going to be a bigger reveal in the Hidden Empire arc. I think he's going to play a bigger role. And I think part of the issue is like, we just don't, the other thing is like, because this would mess with Rebels, right? Because we just don't know, this is post Thrawn on a whale, space whale, right?
Right.
Yeah.
This is I was trying to organize all this. Yeah, this is post Thrawn.
So I don't know if part of it is giving him a false name, playing with it, and waiting for Story Group to say, yes, you can play the Thrawn card, or it has to be something else. Or if they're waiting for, like, here's real, like, inside Disney baseball. Like, I don't think I think the Hidden Empire is coming out this fall, right? We might have an Ahsoka trailer. And so part of me wonders if they want to do the big Thrawn reveal in a trailer as opposed to in a random comic book, not random.
Yeah,
but in a comic
think Thrawn is like Thrawn needs to be the big hook at the end of the trailer, basically.
Yeah, right. Like I think so.
Like and you get Thrawn, and you're like, oh, okay, I can't wait to watch.
Yeah,
but let's say I'm wrong. Let's say it's not Thrawn, or they say no, sorry, you can't use Thrawn. It's just going to be just some random.
I mean, because they already did, like, in Mando, she's like, where is Thrawn? And, like, the name check was basically a tease to the character. So now we just need to see the character because there can't be more trailer dialogue that's like, where is Thrawn? No, I'm still looking for Thrawn. Have you seen Thrawn? Like, you can't. It has to now just be like, I pinpointed his coordinates.
I always forget she drops the name Thrawn because the big reveal the big thing about the episode is Grogu. Like we get Grogu's name, so I always forget Thrawn's named in that episode too.
Yeah, that's a wild episode. The only other thing I could think of is it's like Mango. You know, she's playing both sides, and she has a life as a Imperial, information officer, but it's
like Trinia or Margo. You're saying?
Yeah,
like
Trinia or Margo.
Qi'ra.
Yeah,
Qi'ra
really makes sense.
It couldn't be Qi'ra.
No.
Wait, is
they know Qi'ra looks
Bashra?
Like.
Yeah, and of what we see of Bashra, it's like just looks like just so much shadow you can't even see who it could be. Really,
could it be Gideon?
Well, Bashra, it's such a good name that I wouldn't just cut loose that name. Like, I think it's a great name. I wouldn't just be like, it's Thrawn, but he goes by Bashra. Like, it's such a good name. It almost could be a new character, but because they're hiding their face,
why would you hide it? That's the thing.
I have to think that it's someone super important.
Yeah. Could be Moff Gideon's first name is Bashra. Gideon. But I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out when this comic comes back in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe sooner, depending on the sort of synergy that happens between the other comics. What do we have next as far as comics go?
Well, we do have, so the first, speaking of Aphra, which we were speaking about earlier, the first half, like the first run of Aphra is done. So we can talk about that whenever we would like. And then let me check. Let me pull up my little file.
All right.
My word is taking...
I'm going to read Aphra, I think, tonight with I think Han, Solo, and Chewbacca. I think I have 1 and 2 of those. I read 1, but I would like to read 1 and 2 again just to catch up on that stuff. And then Bounty Hunters. I picked up did I have a Pride cover for Bounty Hunters or Aphra? I think I got Pride covers for both, which are gorgeous. Bounty Hunters I got to check in on too. I have to read all of them. They're filed away, and I will read them.
Yeah. So it's so funny that Crimson Reign is done, the main series, because like the second part of this is going to take quite a while. So in terms of like time frame, Dr. Aphra 16 through 20, which is the first half of the Crimson Reign arc, is done. Then the next thing coming up that we can cover is the High Republic, the Halcyon Legacy comic miniseries. Okay. That ends up in August. Then the Han Solo, the first of Han Solo and Chewbacca ends up in August, and then the Obi-Wan miniseries wraps up in September. So we got a ways before we're even to get close to Shattered Empire, the second half of the stuff. So
we're going to be having Andor for any of those things.
Pretty much. I think the Halcyon Legacy might wrap up before then. But we also have a couple books that we got to cover, so we got content for sure.
Shadow of the Sith. It's going to be a big episode.
Shadow of the Sith was released today, and we haven't talked about Brotherhood. And Brotherhood will be a nice little postscript on Obi-Wan. As it's about Clone Wars era Obi-Wan and Anakin. So I'm going to dig into that this weekend on my little trip, and then I think we're going to cover that next week, right?
I think that's the plan. Yeah. That'll be fun to talk about, and it'll give us more reason to keep talking about Obi-Wan, I'm sure. Like you said, we'll probably use that as the way in and through a lot of it.
I know. It's going to take me a while to digest Obi-Wan, the live-action series, so I want to just bask in it for a while.
To end where we started, I was talking to Grant a little bit about this. I was fortunate enough to see both of you in the real world this weekend.
That's right.
Fun. And what did we talk about? Star Wars.
Yes.
But I
Marvel.
think that and Marvel. That's true. I think that Obi-Wan is my favorite thing that Disney era Star Wars has done so far. And I don't mean that as like a backhanded compliment at all. I really do think it's the favorite. I really connected it. I think it's did the most for me. And so it's one of the ones like I've happily rewatched Mandalorian season 1 and 2, but I'm like jonesing to go back and just watch all 6 episodes in a row of Obi-Wan. Like that's gonna be one that I think I'm gonna revisit a lot.
Yeah, same. It's
fun.
All right. Well, we'll leave you to it. Feel free to rewatch that series also and talk to us about it on Instagram, Twitter. We have a Discord channel that's open to all. There's links in our link tree on Instagram and Twitter. Talk to us. Let's talk about Star Wars. Enjoy the summer and the warm weather, hopefully, where you are. And we will talk to you next week with Brotherhood, the novel. And can't wait to do it. So thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.
This is Grex Kondak signing off. For the latest breaking news, follow @CoreWorldNews on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you, and good night.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.